client comes to our office and maybe might think this sounds a lot like OCD. But sometimes even we don't know. We're like, that might be OCD. It might not be OCD. We have to figure out. ICBT assumes nothing. Let me hear your story. Let me hear how you got to this conclusion. There's a great deal of agency involved with the client when they actually get taken seriously. When their stories are heard, when their reasons are heard and not diminished or swept to the side, or say that doesn't matter, because it matters to them. So it matters to us, and it tells us their story. So we don't presume. It may be normal doubt, it may not be. And there's no real tricks that we can teach clinicians. I get this question a lot. How do you figure out if it's just obsession doubt? Well, it's idiosyncratic. Each case is different. Even each presentation of doubt with a client is different. We can't just paint with a broad brush. This one could be normal doubt. And here's another hiccup. A normal doubt can be a prompt that leads to an obsession doubt. So we need to help our clients who have an overlap of GAD and OCD, which is around 35% of people with OCD also have GAD, assuming we have good ways of pulling these diagnoses apart. So one can provoke the other. You can have people who have depressive ruminations that provoke obsessional doubts. These things can follow each other. So we don't presume. We ask, we explore, we experience, and we ourselves have to be aware of our own inferential confusion. One thing that we like to do in ICBT is take our own inferential confusion measure. So if you're ever interested, the inferential confusion questionnaire, expanded version, 30 questions, 6-point scale. If you score over 92, you have obsessional doubting. Chances are you have OCD. It's not a diagnostic tool, but there's a lot of really strong validity to this measure. And so you can help see why you're getting pulled into the OCD too, because maybe you're inferentially confused as well, and maybe you're weighing what's possible over what's relevant and real. Any questions about this before we get to the next one?
I'm just curious if you can give an example of a normal doubt triggering an obsessional doubt.
Oh, off the top of my normal doubt, sorry, I gotta learn how to speak into this. Normal doubt that triggers an obsessional doubt. You see this in relationship OCD. An example would be, we're not as affectionate as we used to be. The first 6 months were great, right? But it's been, now we're into year 2, and somehow it doesn't feel like we want to tear each other's clothes off. What if I don't love this person like I should? Right? So a normal doubt, which is there something that's changed in our relationship because the desire has changed? Normal, right? Normal doubt. I think we could objectively say that. And then it's, what if I don't love this person as much as I should? Chances are that's an obsessional doubt. Now I want to find out if it's an obsessional doubt, but that's an example. Right? You see with relationships and health OCD, people who have very real symptoms, right? Well, real sensations, maybe they have real medical issues, but it's leading them to a conclusion that's not relevant to their sensations or symptoms. Any other questions?
Can inferential confusion be learned? I have a client who's going to school because I'm having changes in his wife has developed OCD around puzzle is spontaneous, yet this model seems to be explained.
Yes, so can inferential confusion be learned? Yes, but. So there are there's a handful of experimental studies where they taught people without OCD how to reason in an inverse, inferentially confused way, and then gave them scores on the obsessive compulsive questionnaire, and we saw a substantial increase. So yes, you can learn it, but it's not as absorbing as someone who comes about it through an otherwise built-up process. And so when we look at feared possible selves, you're going to understand that there's something unique happening for people with OCD. It predisposition to dissociative absorption is one of the areas of research that's happening right now. So maybe a non-trauma-based dissociation is unique to OCD. There's a handful of studies finding that correlation. And people with OCD in particular do get lost in their imaginations, right? Like dysfunctional daydreaming. They have this sort of over-exercised faculty of doing that. So I think it's learned, yes, but there's other pieces that are unique to people with OCD. Probably fear possible selves, dissociative absorption, other factors we don't know about yet.
Yes, how would that relate to a lot of people now having existential OCD? But actually doubt the reality of the entire experience.
So the existential OCD or OCD a la the Matrix, right? Maybe we're all just batteries for the machines and Elon Musk is our overlord. Right.
But they really
They really believe it, maybe to the point of delusion, which is not too far off from what ICBT would say that OCD is actually in the camp of belief disorders, not in the camp of phobic disorders. Because it was originally designed for people with high levels of overvalued ideation. So historically, in their mid-90s, Kieran O'Connor noticed that an area of OCD that was seemingly untouched by ERP, and FOA even wrote about difficult to treat, people with overvalued ideation, right? People who had a huge investment in their obsessions, almost to the point where it may have been described as egotistonic, but they were very invested in it. Didn't respond well to ERP because maybe the issue wasn't that anxiety is the only thing locking me into this belief. Maybe there's something else. So they developed this treatment to go after the reasoning process that can cause a great deal of investment in your ideas, your beliefs. So obsession and doubt could also be called obsessional belief. We can interchange those words if we want. So I think that this is quite in the camp of ICBT to be dealing with. So we can get into the research later if people want to be bored with me, or bored by me. I nerd out on this stuff, but I can show you some graphs where they compare ICBT to standard CBT with ERP for overvalued ideation, and then ICBT outperforms ERP in the symptoms substantially. We have one more question?
Grayson talks about that people who have OCD are, he says, smart, imaginative, and creative. I find with my practice when I tell people that it's very reassuring, and just saying something like, especially with teenagers, I'll say, write scary stories or direct a scary movie, and they feel like, OCD is kind of hijacking my natural ability to be imaginative and creative. Have you found that helps with this model?
That writing scary stories.
Well, but like reframing it as like this is a skill of yours rather than a pathology, that you have this tendency to, have delusional thoughts or beliefs.
Yeah, very much so. It is a faculty like any other, and telling stories, especially ones that immerse people, is what makes good art. Right? You get lost in the painting, you get lost in the movie script. When all of us watched The Notebook. Spoiler alert if you haven't seen The Notebook. We really felt for this epic love story, so much that people cried and felt like it was tormenting at the end to watch what happened. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, watch the movie. But those two actors hated each other.
Yeah.
They tried to get each other fired.
Yeah.
They wouldn't work with each other on screen. How'd they create the illusion that they loved each other? And we believed it. I believed it. Right? So good stories, you can have a faculty that's very well developed, and then you can extend it too far to the point where it starts to be used in place of reality, and that becomes pathology. So your faculty is probably really well developed, maybe compared to the average person, but how you're applying it's the problem, not that it exists. Next slide. Okay, what's our time like? Because this is thick.
We have 25 minutes.
I'm doing a lot of talking. I signed up for that, didn't I? All right, so what is inferential confusion? Like I said, I don't have a PhD. I didn't spend 7 years working on clinical trials. I have people skills. I don't really mean that. I'm just going for the cheap laugh. I would have called it something different, but I think it captures what's going on once we understand what it is. So let's unpack it. Let's make sense of this. It is a flawed reasoning process. It's not a normal reasoning process. It's not a useful or productive reasoning process. It's a flawed reasoning process. It's unique to OCD. It is transdiagnostic. There's a bunch of newer research coming out that people with other disorders also have levels of inferential confusion. But those levels often are below what we would call a cutoff for OCD. So OCD has like turbocharged, right? Turbocharged jet engines of inferential confusion. And the higher we go, the more immersive and problematic it gets for you. So it's unique to OCD. It leads one to conclude something about the here and now and themselves that is false. Gasp. Obsessions are not just scary, they're false. That's a big claim that I'm making. But it feels real. And that's the trick. What's false feels real. And I can't always see the difference between what feels real and what's true. Why? Because inferential confusion has caused you to live inside of possibilities, to weigh possibilities as heavier than what your eyes see. Right? Many of us have probably had clients who would stare at a locked door for 2-3 minutes. Now, 3 minutes is a really long time. If you don't believe me, come up here and talk for 3 minutes. Imagine staring at a door and not trusting your eyes so much that you didn't see it locked for 3 minutes. Or a faucet knife. You stare at it and you look, and maybe it's still on. Putting possibility in front of what my eyes are telling me, my ears are telling me, is what inferential confusion does. It is applied selectively, and we'll get into that after lunch. Where is it selectively applied? What guides that kind of bias or that kind of vigilance for those things? But we know that people with OCD reason just fine everywhere else in their life, but not here. Why not here? So it's not that they have some kind of dispositional problem as proposed by other people. Like, no, you have a personality that is dispositionally true across your board. You're neurotic, and that's the problem, right? Or you can't tolerate uncertainty fundamentally, and that's your problem. People with OCD only have OCD in certain areas. So that explanation doesn't actually provide us a great deal of predictability. We still can't explain why you're having OCD here and not here if you have a general problem with uncertainty. Why here, but not here? Uncertainty can be fun. You don't like to know the end of the movie, right? You don't like to know the end of the baseball game. Don't tell me, I want to find out for myself. We have spoiler alerts, that means you're a jerk. If you tell me the end of something, that's uncertainty, you like it. So it's not inherently problematic. Even for people with OCD. How many people with OCD like to figure out the end of the book on their own? So feared possible self directs the situations that people are susceptible, biased, predisposed, hypervigilant to. And we'll get into what that is. Now, inferential confusion actually is part of what makes a feared possible self different from the authentic and true self. So in order for it to be called feared possible self, it must be constructed through inferential confusion. And we'll get into the details of that later. So inferential confusion is this. And It is a very well-studied concept. It's not just an interesting philosophical idea. It's been experimentally manipulated many times. And it seems to be a very strong predictor of not only who has OCD, but what can predict recovery in OCD. So when we watch the ICQ scores drop, we watch the Y box drop. And we do it without exposures. Gasp again. No one's gasping. Just me. Okay, next slide. So there are factors that create inferential confusion. I swear to you, it's, thank you. I want this for the record. It was right on, it's right on. All right, so factors that create inferential. There are three. Well, there's probably more than three, but there are three that we're going to talk about, three categories. So when reasoning about the here and now situation, driving over a pothole, looking at the door handle to your local giant, or when thinking about who you are, yourself, there is an over-reliance on possibilities. I can't emphasize that enough. You are lost inside of what could be. And you're relying on that to fill in information that your senses, really you think your senses don't have. You distrust your senses and you fundamentally distrust yourself, but only in this area. My eyes work over here. I can tell when the light's red, except for some reason in Jersey, you guys have the lateral lights and not the vertical lights, at least on the streets here. You're looking at me like I'm crazy. I literally just try to figure out.
Not everywhere.
So it's not a pox on the whole house, just on this one. And I'm like, why is it that way? That's wrong. So you distrust your senses and you distrust yourself, right? My eyes work just fine, but maybe they don't work fine here. We know that people with OCD don't have eye problems any more than the general population, or hearing problems in the general population. They have perception that is perfectly fine, but they doubt their perception, right? And that's not ICBT research, that's just research across OCD phenomenology as a whole. So, if they don't trust their eyes, how do we get them to trust their eyes again in this situation? They trust it over here. And then the misuse of irrelevant associations. Again, what does that even mean? What's an irrelevant association, right? Certainly a PhD came up with this. I pick on people with PhDs. Not PsyDs, you guys are my brothers. Just the PhDs. Irrelevant associations are going to unpack that as well. So hopefully all this makes so much sense we're done, and if not, that's your problem. Next slide. So we're indulging, we're investing, we're committing to what ifs, could be's, might be's, maybes, that are lacking any relevant sense data. What is a relevant sensory piece of data to I might be a serial killer?
I have bodies in my basement.
That I put there. I had a friend who bought a house, and they did excavating in the backyard, and they literally found skeletons. True story.
You don't tell that story to your patients, right?
There are bodies that I put there. But maybe I haven't done that yet. Maybe I'm going to put a body there. What would be relevant sensory data to suggest I'm going to put a body there?
I killed someone.
Duct tape, body tarps, duct tape, lye from the local hardware store, not conspicuous. Any other present moment sensory data to suggest you might be a serial killer?
Killing someone.
Killing someone would work. Thinking of how to kill someone. Right, you ever watch these documentaries, Making a Murderer, and they go into the guy's computer, right, and it's like, how to knock someone out with chloroform. How deep should I dig the hole? You'd think, especially if you were once a teenage boy, you know how to wipe out the search history on your computer. So we have sense data, yes. So it's not just, it's possible I could be a serial killer, because that's true of everyone in this room. We all bonk on the head. Maybe we become a serial killer. How many people know the story of Phineas Gage?
Yep.
Right? If you took Psych 101, you know Phineas Gage had a tamping iron blasted through some part of his brain. I don't remember which one. Some part. And he was a pretty gentle, cool person that became a nightmare of a person. Brain injuries can do that to people. So did you have a brain injury recently? And are you Googling how to kill people? And more fundamentally, do you desire to torture and kill people? Not could I desire, do you desire it? And again, what we know about sense data is that it's not only external, it's internal, right? So I steal this one from my colleague, Kate Goldhouse. How do you know if you need to sneeze? Does anyone here need to sneeze right now? It's possible, it could sneak up on you, but do you have any reason to think you need to sneeze? How do you know when you need to sneeze? Yeah, right? And so when it's about to burst forth through your nose, it's not, maybe I need to sneeze. It's possible I need to sneeze. No, you're going to sneeze. You need to sneeze. That's why you look at the light and try to trigger the, if you don't know, some people are sensitive to, it's actually a gene. And if you're sensitive to certain lights, you can actually trigger sneezing fits. Another thing I steal from Kate is what she calls the umbrella example. Is it possible that a rain cloud could form at just any given moment? Anyone know anything about meteorology? Come on. Yes, rain clouds can form at any given moment. That's what clouds do. That's what we call it weather. It can just show up and it can rain. So the fact that it's possible that a rain cloud could form at any moment must mean that you carry an umbrella at your hip all the time, yes? Some do. Most don't. So when do you carry an umbrella with you? Yeah, when the weather person says, hey, you know, it's probably going to rain today, take an umbrella. All right, cool.
Or when you see outside.
Or when you look outside and it's raining, or it looks like it might rain. But those aren't possibilities. My eyes and my ears and this expert told me there was a chance I should take the weather seriously and take an umbrella with me, not just because it's possible, right? The book, the manual goes into the example of crossing the street. So if you haven't read the manual, I'll just give you a quick synopsis of this one. Is it possible, if your intention was to cross a busy street, what's the very first thing you do before stepping into it? You do what your mom told you and you look both ways. Now you're not just looking. What else are you doing? You're listening. You're looking and you're listening. What are you looking and listening for? And not just cars. What are the cars doing? Yeah, we care about moving cars. Right? I don't care about stopped cars, parked cars. I care about moving cars. And moving cars sound a certain way and they look a certain way. And if I don't look and see a moving car, what am I free to do? Look, are you insane? Are you insane? Is there not a possibility that your eyes or your ears failed you in that moment? Right? I mean, how many people have been tricked by a magician? Your eyes can be tricked. So why would you ever cross the street?
To get to the other side.
Into your face. How many people ate solid food this morning? Are you insane? You know how many people could possibly choke to death on solid food? It's possible. In order for us to take possibilities as relevant, we need something more. Possibilities have to be corroborated with relevant sensory data. For the average people, and even for people with OCD outside of their theme, to care about possibilities. But in their theme, that's all they need. They just need possibilities. We got 10 minutes. Let's go to the next slide. So we minimize and we distrust available sensory data about the here and now and the self. I'll also say that OCD isn't just about what the senses tell us or what they don't tell us, but they should. If I hit someone with my car 30 miles an hour, and they're an averagely sized person, 135 pounds, what do you think that feels like?
Jarring.
Yeah, does it feel like, boop? My coffee kind of moved. Does it feel like something else? How many people hit a deer? Average size deer about 130 pounds, 120 pounds. Hit that at 30 miles an hour, what happens? Your airbag goes off.
Yeah.
Right, that deer's not there anymore. There's probably hair stuck in the car, blood. Am I being too descriptive with this? So my sensory information didn't say that when I hit the pothole. It didn't tell me there was blood and screaming and crunching bones and the airbag went off. But maybe it was a person. So we distrust the information. We distrust the information that is there, but we also ignore the information that should be there that isn't. So again, 5 senses, I don't need to tell you what those are. OCD will dismiss and distrust that data. Common sense is also referred to in CBT because we understand that not everything has present moment perceptual data associated with it. We all trust the sun will rise tomorrow, yes? But none of us are seeing it yet, but we know it's going to rise. What information would we expect to have if it wasn't going to rise? Yeah, NASA would probably be on that. Right? The world scientists would probably be a little alarmed. Right? Be like, the sun's not coming up tomorrow, but, it's Friday. Tomorrow's actually Monday for anyone who's thinking they had a longer weekend. So, shared data from experience, shared knowledge that's relevant to the situation. Because there's a bunch of irrelevant shared knowledge, but relevant to the situation is what we care about. Will also be dismissed. And then inner sense data, your desire, synonyms for desire, intent or motivation. Right? Those are internal things. I don't see that with my eyes, I feel it. And that is also known and then doubted, known and then distrusted. How do we know that? Because they have desires everywhere else that they don't distrust, but that they distrust here. And how do they come to distrust it? All you have to do is ask. How did you come to distrust your desire here? Tell me that story, because it all comes back to the story. So your OCD will be incongruent with your true inner sense data, the data about who you are that you doubt. We got like 5 minutes. The use of irrelevant associations. Information that has nothing to do with this particular conclusion. As my father used to say, what does that have to do with the price of tea in China? And I don't know where that came from, but it's apt, right? That's irrelevant. What does that have to do with the price of tea in China? Well, it doesn't, because I'm not talking about tea in China, right? So arbitrary or out of context information that we use to justify our specific conclusions. This is some Olympic level mental manipulation. We can find the 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon that connect this piece of information to my conclusion in such a seamless way that you go, yeah, that tracks. And then the moment passes and you're like, is this still on? Okay. Why did I ever think that? Again, the ego dystonic part of OCD. People with OCD who have insight go, this is bonkers. Why am I thinking like this? But in the moment, it doesn't feel bonkers. In the moment, it feels completely real. So these associations are not supported by any relevant sense data. In order for possibilities, in order for irrelevant associations to be somehow weighted and taken seriously anywhere else in our life, it has to be corroborated with what? Sensory data. And this is something we help our clients to get connected to. We always help them come back. How do you know anything about your real world? In a later chapter, which we won't go over today, we do something called reality sensing. which is not reality testing. It's reality sensing, meaning I use my senses because they work just fine. And I track, at least I do with my clients, that for the next week or two, I want you to randomly look at how you came to know anything about your present moment. So you're grilling a piece of chicken, how do you know when it's done? Is it because it's possibly done? Or is there some other indicator that it's done? When you press your brake, how do you know your car's going to slow down? How do you know it is slowing down? Is it because it's possible? Or is it because there's some other sensory data corroborating? We track your senses in moments that aren't obsessional to help you realize that the way you know anything is through sensory information and common sense. It's all we have. The question is can you do that here in obsessional moments too? And we're going to end